Kang Jae-won stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. The room went silent. 6 men who had spent years carrying out his orders lowered their eyes without being told. They thought the feared Mafia boss had noticed a mistake in the documents spread across the dining table. Instead, his attention was fixed on something else. Amanda Sternberg. She had climbed onto a small wooden step stool to dust the carved shelves lining the wall. It was the same thing she did every Thursday morning without drawing attention to herself. Then the sleeve of her loose cleaning robe slipped from her shoulder. Just enough. A faded scar stretched across the top of her back. Beneath it was a tiny birthmark shaped like a crescent moon. Jae-won's breath caught. His fingers loosened around the porcelain teacup in his hand. The cup struck the table with a sharp crack. Every man in the room looked toward Amanda. Startled, she quickly pulled the robe back into place and stepped down from the stool. I'm sorry, sir, she said softly, assuming she'd interrupted the meeting. For several seconds, Jae-won couldn't answer. That scar. That birthmark. He had seen them before. Not yesterday. Not last year. 18 years ago. A memory he had buried beneath blood, loyalty, and violence suddenly forced its way back. Amanda, he finally said. His voice sounded unfamiliar, almost uncertain. Yes, Mr. Kang? Leave us. She bowed politely. Of course. Without another word, she wheeled her cleaning cart toward the hallway, never noticing that every pair of eyes in the mansion had followed her. The heavy doors closed behind her. Only then did one of Jae-won's captains dare to speak. Boss. Should we replace her? Jae-won's stare remained fixed on the empty doorway. No. Another long silence. No one touches her. The room froze. No one questioned him. Not because they understood. Because they didn't. The most feared man in the Korean underworld had never spoken about a servant that way. Not once. 3 months earlier. Amanda Sternberg hated hospitals. Not because of the smell. Not because of the endless waiting. Because every visit reminded her she was running out of time. She sat beside her 17-year-old sister, Zoe, whose smile somehow survived even the worst days. You look tired, Zoe whispered. Amanda forced a grin. I've looked tired since I was 16. That earned a small laugh. It was worth it. The doctor entered carrying another folder. Amanda immediately searched his face. She already knew. Good news never arrived looking like that. The surgery can't wait much longer. How long? Maybe 8 weeks. Amanda swallowed. And the cost. The number left her unable to speak. It wasn't just impossible. It was more money than she'd earned in the last 4 years. The doctor rested the folder on the desk. I wish I had another answer. Amanda nodded politely. She had learned that crying never changed invoices. Outside the hospital, Zoe squeezed her hand. I'm okay if it doesn't happen. Amanda stopped walking. Don't ever say that. But. No. Her voice cracked for the first time all day. I promised Mom I'd take care of you. You were 19. I still promised. Cars rushed past as the sisters stood on the crowded sidewalk. Amanda wrapped her little sister in a tight hug. I don't care how many jobs I have to work. I don't care how long I sleep. I don't care what I have to sacrifice. You are getting that surgery. Zoe closed her eyes. You always make impossible promises. Amanda smiled through tears. So far I've kept every one. She prayed this wouldn't be the first she couldn't. The Kang estate was unlike anywhere Amanda had ever worked. Employees barely spoke. Security guards changed shifts with military precision. Visitors arrived in armored vehicles. Nobody asked questions. Nobody lingered. Everyone simply did their job and went home. Amanda had learned one rule quickly. Never look at Mr. Kang longer than necessary. Stories about him traveled faster than facts. Some said he'd ended gang wars before breakfast. Others claimed politicians feared his phone calls more than elections. Amanda didn't know what was true. She didn't want to know. To her, he was simply another wealthy employer whose mansion paid almost twice the market rate. That paycheck mattered. Every extra dollar moved Zoe one step closer to surgery. So Amanda worked harder than anyone else. She arrived first. Left last. Accepted every extra shift. Never complained. The older housekeeper, Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, noticed. You know, the woman said one evening while folding linens, most people don't last a month here. Amanda smiled. I can't afford to quit. Mrs. Brooks studied her. There it is again. What? That look. Amanda frowned. The one people wear when they're carrying something too heavy to tell anyone. Amanda laughed it off. I'm fine. Mrs. Brooks didn't argue. She simply handed Amanda a warm container. Take this home. I can't. You'll insult me if you don't. Amanda peeked inside. Homemade beef stew. She blinked. Thank you. Mrs. Brooks smiled. Take care of whoever you're working so hard for. Amanda's expression changed for the briefest moment. She hadn't told anyone about Zoe. Not here. Not anywhere. Yet somehow, some people simply knew when pain was hiding behind a smile. Later that night, Amanda sat beside Zoe's bed in their tiny apartment. The lights were off to save electricity. The sisters shared a bowl of the stew. 1 spoon each, taking turns. It tastes expensive, Zoe joked. Amanda laughed. I don't think that's how food works. It does tonight. For a few precious minutes the apartment felt warm. Safe. Normal. Amanda looked across the room at the envelope hidden beneath a family photograph. Inside were unpaid medical bills. She hadn't opened them in days. The numbers never changed. Only the deadlines did. She quietly reached for the envelope after Zoe fell asleep. A single tear landed on the paper before she wiped it away. Then she made herself another promise. No matter what it cost, no matter who she had to work for, she would save her sister. Even if it meant breaking herself to do it. She had no idea that, across the city, the man everyone feared had just ordered a private investigation into the quiet maid who never asked anyone for help. And what his investigators uncovered would force Kang Jae-won to question the only life he had ever known. Jae-won rarely lost sleep. Years of violence had taught him to close his eyes whenever the opportunity came. Regret was a luxury no one in his family could afford. But that night he never made it to bed. He stood alone in the estate's library, staring at an old photograph that had remained hidden inside a wooden box for nearly 2 decades. A little black girl sat on the steps of a neighborhood church, smiling despite the bandage wrapped around her shoulder. Beside her knelt a frightened Korean boy no older than 12, his face bruised, his school uniform stained with dirt. The girl's shoulder, the crescent-shaped birthmark, the scar, was the same one. The memory returned with painful clarity. 18 years earlier, his father had beaten him for refusing to strike another child during a training exercise. 12-year-old Jae-won had escaped through a broken fence and wandered several blocks before collapsing outside a church. He remembered hearing footsteps. Then a small voice. You're bleeding. He looked up. A little girl, maybe 10 years old, held out a handkerchief. She wasn't afraid of him. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat beside him. My grandma says people look scary when they're hurting. He almost laughed. I am scary. No. She smiled. You look lonely. No one had ever said that to him. She cleaned the cut above his eyebrow with surprising gentleness. When the pastor came outside, she introduced herself. I'm Amanda. He hesitated. My name is Jay. He couldn't tell her the rest. His family name already carried blood. Before leaving, she removed the tiny wooden cross hanging around her neck. It's not magic, she told him. But whenever I get scared, I hold it. She pressed it into his hand. So maybe it can help you too. He had wanted to give it back. Instead, he kept it. For years. Until the day his father found it. The old man burned it in front of him. Kindness, his father had said, is how weak people get buried. From that day forward, Jae-won buried the memory of Amanda along with every soft part of himself. Or so he thought. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in. His most trusted advisor entered carrying a slim folder. Han Dae-sik had served the Kang family longer than Jae-won had been alive. The report. Jae-won accepted it without speaking. Inside was Amanda's life. Age 28. Occupation, housekeeper. Residence, a small apartment she shared with her younger sister. Parents, both deceased. Income, 3 jobs. Medical debt, extensive. Dependent, Zoe Sternberg. Critical heart condition. Estimated surgery cost. Jae-won's jaw tightened. He turned another page. There were photographs. Amanda leaving the hospital. Amanda cleaning office buildings after midnight. Amanda delivering groceries before sunrise. Amanda sleeping on a bus with her work shoes still on. She averaged less than 4 hours of sleep each day. For almost a year. He closed the folder. Who else has seen this? No one. It stays that way. Han nodded. Yes, boss. Jae-won stared out the window. Pay the hospital. Han blinked. Immediately. Under what name? No name. They'll ask questions. Find answers they don't need to question. Han had served 3 generations of the Kang family. This was the first time he'd ever seen compassion outweigh strategy. It will be done. And day sick. Yes. If she ever learns I was involved. Han already understood. She never will. The following afternoon, Amanda rushed into the hospital expecting another argument about payment. Instead, the billing officer smiled. I believe there's been an update. Amanda frowned. I'm sorry? The balance has been cleared. She stared. What? The entire surgery has been funded. Amanda laughed nervously. No. The woman turned the monitor toward her. Every outstanding payment. Gone. Every future surgical expense. Covered. Amanda shook her head. There has to be a mistake. We verified it twice. Who paid? I'm afraid the donor requested complete anonymity. Amanda felt her knees weaken. Outside the office she sat alone on a bench. For almost 10 minutes she couldn't move. Then she cried. Not because she was sad. Because hope hurt after carrying despair for so long. She looked toward the chapel across the parking lot. Whoever you are. Her voice trembled. Thank you. Across town, Jae-won watched security footage from the hospital. Not because he wanted gratitude. Only because he needed to know whether she had smiled. When Amanda covered her face and wept, something tightened inside his chest. He immediately switched off the screen. He had ordered men executed without blinking. But one woman's tears were suddenly unbearable. That evening, Amanda returned to work lighter than she'd felt in months. Mrs. Brooks noticed immediately. You've been smiling all afternoon. Amanda laughed. I don't even know why. Try me. She lowered her voice. Someone paid for Zoe's surgery. Mrs. Brooks gasped. What? I don't know who. Amanda's eyes filled again. I've spent the whole day trying to figure out how to thank someone I can't even find. Mrs. Brooks hugged her tightly. Maybe some blessings don't need names. Neither woman noticed the security camera above the hallway, or the man watching silently from his office. Days turned into weeks. Zoe's surgery was successful. Her laughter slowly returned. Amanda began sleeping more than 4 hours a night. For the first time in years, she bought fresh fruit instead of canned food. She even replaced the worn-out sneakers she'd repaired 6 different times. Life was changing. Quietly. Almost magically. Until another problem arrived. One rainy evening, Amanda left the estate after finishing work. She hadn't noticed the black sedan parked across the street. 3 men stepped out. Their expensive suits couldn't hide the tattoos creeping above their collars. One smiled. Miss Sternberg? Amanda stopped walking. Yes. Our boss would like a word. Something about the way he said it made every instinct inside her scream. She took one slow step backward. I think you have the wrong person. No. The man's smile disappeared. We're quite certain we found the right one. And from the shadows across the street, another pair of eyes had already seen everything. Jae-won reached for the phone in his pocket. His voice was calm. But every man who worked for him recognized the tone. Move. Within seconds, black SUVs surged toward the curb. Because someone had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had tried to take Amanda. Without realizing. She was now under the protection of the most dangerous man in America. The first SUV slammed sideways across the road. Its tires screamed against the wet pavement, blocking the black sedan before it could move another inch. Amanda stumbled backward, clutching her bag. She had no idea what was happening. The men who had approached her exchanged nervous glances. One muttered under his breath. Kang. The rear doors of 3 black SUVs opened almost at once. 8 men stepped out in complete silence. No shouting. No threats. Only disciplined, deliberate movement. Their dark coats barely shifted as they surrounded the kidnappers. Amanda noticed something strange. The men weren't looking at her. They were waiting for someone else. A final vehicle rolled to a stop. Its door opened. Kang Jae-won stepped into the rain. The street became so quiet that Amanda could hear the water dripping from a nearby traffic light. One of the kidnappers forced a laugh. This is a misunderstanding. Jae-won didn't answer. His eyes settled on Amanda. Are you hurt? She blinked. And, no. He gave a single nod before finally turning toward the men. Who sent you? No one answered. One of them reached slowly inside his jacket. Before his hand could emerge, Jae-won's bodyguard had already disarmed him. The pistol clattered across the pavement. Still, Jae-won's expression never changed. I asked a question. The oldest kidnapper swallowed. Chairman Cho. Jae-won's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Amanda had never heard that name. His men clearly had. Several exchanged alarmed glances. Chairman Cho wasn't simply another crime boss. He controlled the Eastern Territories. For years, the Kang and Cho organizations had maintained an uneasy peace. Until tonight. Jae-won's voice remained calm. Tell Chairman Cho something for me. The man nodded desperately. If he wants a war. Jae-won stepped closer. He should come after me. His eyes shifted toward Amanda. But if he ever uses innocent people again? The silence that followed felt heavier than any threat. There won't be enough of his empire left to bury. The kidnappers understood. They ran. Not because anyone chased them. Because they had been allowed to leave. To carry the message. Amanda stared at Jae-won. You saved me. He looked away almost immediately. You happened to work for me. That's not what happened. It is. No employer would do that. He paused. Then quietly replied. I expect my employees to return home safely. She smiled. I still owe you a thank you. You owe me nothing. Before she could say another word, he was already walking back toward his vehicle. Amanda watched him disappear into the rain. For the first time. The terrifying stories she'd heard about Kang Jae-won didn't seem to match the man she'd just met. Inside the SUV, Han Dae-sik broke the silence. You've declared war. I know. They'll retaliate. I know. They'll discover why. Jae-won stared through the rain-covered window. They cannot. Han hesitated. You care about her. Jae-won didn't answer. Sometimes silence admitted more than words. 3 days later, the Kang estate looked normal. Employees worked. Gardeners trimmed hedges. Security guards rotated shifts. Only those closest to Jae-won knew normal had disappeared. Every entrance now carried twice as many guards. Every delivery truck was searched. Every unknown vehicle was followed. Amanda noticed the extra security almost immediately. Mrs. Brooks simply whispered, "Don't ask questions around here." Amanda nodded. She wasn't planning to. Late that evening, Amanda finished cleaning Jae-won's private study. She carefully arranged the books exactly as she'd found them. One object caught her attention. A small wooden box sat slightly open. Inside rested a broken wooden cross. Its edges were burned black. Something about it felt strangely sad. She reached toward it. I wouldn't. Jae-won's voice startled her. She quickly stepped back. I'm sorry. He walked into the room. It belonged to someone. I'm sorry for touching it. You didn't. He looked at the cross for a long moment. I've simply never let anyone else see it. Amanda studied his face. For just a second. The feared Mafia boss looked exhausted. Not dangerous. Just tired. It must have meant a lot. It did. What happened? It was destroyed. I'm sorry. He smiled faintly. It wasn't your fault. Amanda laughed softly. I don't even know what happened. No. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. You don't. She sensed he wanted the conversation to end. So she picked up her cleaning supplies. I'll leave you to your work. Amanda. She turned. Yes. How is your sister? Amanda froze. She had never mentioned Zoe. Not once. How did you know I have a sister? A dangerous second passed. Jae-won's mind raced. Then Han, who had quietly entered behind him, answered smoothly. Mrs. Brooks mentioned it to one of the staff. Amanda relaxed. Oh. She smiled. She's getting stronger every day. That's good. It feels like a miracle. Jae-won nodded once. Sometimes miracles arrive quietly. Amanda left the room. The moment the door closed, Han exhaled. That was close. Jae-won remained staring at the doorway. Too close. Across the city, Chairman Cho wasn't smiling. The surveillance photos lay across his desk. Amanda leaving the hospital. Amanda leaving the estate. Amanda laughing with Mrs. Brooks. Amanda speaking to Jae-won. His advisor frowned. She's just a maid. No. Cho tapped one photograph. She's his weakness. We've never seen him protect anyone like this. Cho leaned back. Good. His smile was cold. Every empire falls the same way. From inside. No. He folded Amanda's photograph. From the heart. The following Sunday, Amanda had the day off. She took Zoe to a neighborhood food festival. For the first time in years, neither of them was thinking about hospitals. They shared spicy fried chicken from a paper basket. Zoe laughed after accidentally getting sauce on Amanda's nose. You look ridiculous. I blame you. You always do. Amanda chased her through the small park until both sisters collapsed onto the grass laughing. Neither noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Inside, Jae-won watched from a distance. He wasn't there to spy. He was there because his security team had reported unusual movement in the area. He only intended to make sure they were safe. Then leave. Instead, he watched Amanda laugh. Really laugh. No fear. No exhaustion. No pretending. Just joy. It struck him harder than any bullet ever had. Han looked at him carefully. You should go. I know. But you're not going to. Jae-won smiled sadly. No. Because for the first time in 20 years, he was beginning to understand exactly what kind of life had been stolen from him, and what it might cost to protect the woman who reminded him of it. He still didn't realize someone else was watching too. From the rooftop across the street, a sniper slowly adjusted his scope. Amanda's face settled inside the crosshairs. His finger tightened on the trigger. The gunshot never came. A small red dot danced across Amanda's shoulder. Jae-won saw it first. Down? His shout cut through the laughter. Amanda barely had time to look up before Jae-won sprinted across the street. He slammed into her with enough force to throw both of them behind a concrete planter. A bullet exploded against the bench where Amanda had been standing less than a second earlier. People screamed. Food trays crashed onto the pavement. Children cried as families scattered in every direction. Jae-won's security team reacted instantly. 2 agents shielded Amanda and Zoe. The others spread out, searching rooftops. Another shot rang out. Glass shattered above them. The sniper had already disappeared. Jae-won didn't bother chasing him. His only concern was the woman trembling beside him. He reached for her shoulders. Are you hit? Amanda shook her head, unable to speak. Only then did she notice blood running down his sleeve. You've been shot. It's nothing. It isn't nothing. The bullet had grazed his upper arm, tearing through his jacket. He looked toward Zoe. Take your sister. Amanda hesitated. What about you? I'll live. You need a hospital. I have doctors. His voice remained calm, but his eyes searched the crowd. He wasn't looking for danger anymore. He was making sure Amanda and Zoe could leave safely. For the first time, Amanda saw fear in Kang Jae-won's face. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing someone else. That night, Amanda couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the gunfire. She kept asking herself the same question. Why would someone try to kill her? And why had Jae-won risked his own life without hesitation? None of it made sense. At the Kang estate, the atmosphere had changed. The mansion felt less like a home and more like a fortress. Han entered Jae-won's office carrying another report. The sniper belonged to Chairman Cho. I expected that. We also intercepted communications. Han placed a recording device on the desk. The target was never Amanda. Jae-won looked up. Han pressed play. A distorted voice filled the room. Don't kill the maid unless Kang chooses her over the Empire. If he does, she's confirmed as his weakness. The recording ended. Silence settled over the office. Han spoke carefully. They were testing you. And I failed. You saved an innocent woman. I showed Cho exactly where to strike. Han sighed. Then there's only one way to protect her. Jae-won already knew. He hated the answer. She has to leave. The next morning, Amanda was called into Jae-won's office. She entered quietly. You wanted to see me? Sit down. She remained standing. I prefer to stand. He almost smiled. You always do. Amanda folded her hands. Is this about yesterday? Yes. I wanted to thank you. You don't need to. I do. She looked directly at him. You saved my life. He looked away. It shouldn't have been in danger. Amanda frowned. What does that mean? He took a slow breath. You can't work here anymore. The words landed like a punch. What? I'm terminating your employment. Amanda stared at him. Did I do something wrong? No. Then why? It's no longer safe. I can decide what's safe for me. No. His voice became colder. You can't. She took a step forward. After everything that's happened, you're just sending me away? It isn't a discussion. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I thought. She stopped herself. You thought what? I thought maybe the stories about you were wrong. His expression hardened. They weren't. Amanda searched his face, hoping to find the man who had protected her. Instead, she found only the Mafia boss. So that's it. Yes. You saved my life. Yes. You fire me. Yes. And you won't even tell me why. No. She nodded slowly. I understand. But she didn't. She turned and walked out without looking back. The office door closed softly behind her. Only then did Jae-won allow himself to breathe. Han stepped from the adjoining room. She hates you now. Good. You don't mean that. I do if it keeps her alive. Han looked at the blood-stained bandage on Jae-won's arm. You've sacrificed everything except the one thing she asked for. What was that? The truth. Amanda packed her locker in silence. Mrs. Brooks watched with concern. You can't possibly believe this was your fault. I don't know what to believe anymore. Mrs. Brooks reached into her apron pocket. I've been keeping something. She handed Amanda a small envelope. It was left with me months ago. Amanda looked confused. For me? I was told to give it to you only if you ever stopped working here. Inside was a cashier's check. The amount made Amanda gasp. It was enough to cover Zoe's rehabilitation, rent, and living expenses for years. There was no signature. Only a short handwritten note. Live freely. Amanda's hands began to shake. Who gave you this? Mrs. Brooks hesitated. I promised. Please. I promised I would never tell. Amanda folded the note carefully. For some reason, the handwriting looked familiar. Across the city, Chairman Cho smiled as he received his latest report. The maid has left the estate. And Kang? He let her go. Cho nodded. Then phase 2 begins. His advisor looked puzzled. I thought separating them was the goal. Cho laughed quietly. It was never about separating them. He picked up another file. Inside were photographs taken more than 20 years earlier. One showed a frightened Korean boy sitting beside a smiling little black girl outside a church. Cho tapped the image. Kang still doesn't know the whole story. What story? Cho's smile widened. The fire that killed his mother was never an accident. Amanda couldn't stop thinking about the note. Live freely. 2 simple words. Yet every time she looked at them she saw Jae-won's face. The calm way he had spoken. The way he avoided taking credit. The way he had stood between her and a bullet without a second's hesitation. None of it matched the ruthless man the world described. Something was missing. And she intended to find out. The following afternoon, Amanda returned to the Kang estate. Not as an employee. As a woman demanding answers. Security guards immediately recognized her. One spoke quietly into his earpiece. Less than a minute later, Han Dae-sik appeared. Amanda. I need to see him. I'm afraid that isn't possible. Then you'll have to tell me. Han remained silent. She held up the envelope. Who wrote this? I can't answer that. Who paid for Zoe's surgery? Silence. Who saved us at the festival? Still silence. Amanda's frustration boiled over. Why won't anyone tell me the truth? Han closed his eyes for a moment. He had served the Kang family his entire life. He had never broken Jae-won's trust. But he also knew the young man he had helped raise was preparing to destroy himself for a promise no one else even knew existed. You deserve to know. Amanda looked up. Han took a slow breath. It was him. Her heartbeat seemed to stop. The surgery. Him. The anonymous donor? Him. The money? Him. The security watching your apartment? Him. The scholarship Zoe received yesterday. Amanda blinked. What scholarship? Han frowned. You didn't know? She shook her head. Han realized even he hadn't known how much Jae-won had done. He arranged everything. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. But why? Han smiled sadly. Because 18 years ago, a little girl sat beside a frightened Korean boy outside a church. Amanda froze. The memory rushed back. A bruised child. A borrowed handkerchief. A little wooden cross. Jae. Han nodded. He never forgot you. Amanda staggered backward. No. He searched for you for years. He found me? And recognized the scar on your shoulder the day your robe slipped. Amanda covered her mouth. Every strange moment suddenly made sense. His questions about Zoe. The hospital bills. The protection. The note. The broken cross. Everything. But why didn't he tell me? Han's expression darkened. Because Chairman Cho discovered you. Amanda whispered. So he pushed me away. To save my life. Before Amanda could speak again, alarms exploded throughout the estate. Security officers sprinted across the courtyard. Han grabbed his radio. Then his face lost all color. What happened? One frightened guard answered. Chairman Cho's men. Where? The old church. Han looked at Amanda. His heart sank. He went alone. Jae-won stood inside the abandoned church where his childhood had briefly felt safe. Dust drifted through broken stained glass windows. The wooden pews were cracked with age. Chairman Cho stood waiting. "I wondered if you'd remember this place. You wanted me. I wanted the truth." Cho tossed an old photograph onto the floor. "You've spent 20 years blaming your father for everything. I don't need another lecture." "No." Cho smiled. "You need the last piece." He stepped closer. "Your mother wasn't killed by your father's enemies." Jae-won's jaw tightened. "My father confessed." "He confessed because he thought he failed to protect her." Cho's smile disappeared. "I ordered the fire." Silence. "You. I needed your father broken. You murdered her. I built the empire you inherited." Jae-won's breathing slowed. Dangerously. Cho continued. "You know the funny part? The little girl who comforted you afterward." He laughed. "I almost had her killed too." Jae-won stopped moving. Everything inside him became terrifyingly still. Cho misunderstood the silence. He thought he'd won. "You see now. I gave you everything." "No." Jae-won's voice was almost calm. "You took everything." Outside, Amanda's taxi screeched to a halt. She jumped out before it stopped completely. Han shouted after her. "Don't go inside." She ignored him. She ran through the broken doorway. "Jae." He turned. For the first time since she had known him, his eyes were filled with hatred. Not for her. For the man standing opposite him. Cho smiled. "So this is the famous Amanda." Amanda stepped beside Jae-won. "No." She took his hand. "This is the man you were too afraid to become." Jae-won looked at her in disbelief. She squeezed his hand tighter. "I know everything." His voice cracked. "I tried to protect you. I know. I lied. I know. I pushed you away. I know." Tears rolled down her face. "But you never tried to own me." She looked into his eyes. "You only ever tried to set me free." For the first time in over 20 years, Kang Jae-won cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just one silent tear. The frightened little boy Amanda had once met finally surfaced beneath the feared Mafia boss. Chairman Cho reached for the pistol beneath his jacket. He never drew it. Dozens of police officers stormed through every entrance. Federal agents. Nobody move. Cho slowly smiled. "You called them?" Amanda shook her head. "No." Jae-won did. Several days earlier. He had secretly delivered every financial record, every criminal ledger, and every name connected to the Kang organization, including his own. Han had begged him not to. But Jae-won had already made his choice. He would rather lose his empire than lose the only person who had ever reminded him how to be human. The agents surrounded both men. One officer approached Jae-won. "Kang Jae-won." He extended his hands. "I'll come peacefully." Amanda grabbed his arm. "No." He smiled gently. "This is the price." 1 year later. The first thing Amanda noticed was the silence. Not the frightening silence that had once surrounded the Kang estate. This silence was peaceful. Children laughed somewhere beyond the trees. Wind carried the scent of fresh bread from a nearby cafe. Life had moved forward. Just as it always did. Amanda stepped through the gates of a small community center built on the land where the abandoned church had once stood. Above the entrance was a simple sign. The Crescent House. Most visitors assumed the name referred to hope. Only Amanda knew it honored the tiny crescent-shaped birthmark that had reunited two lives separated for nearly 20 years. Inside, Zoe was helping a group of children finish their homework. Healthy. Energetic. Alive. Amanda paused at the doorway, smiling as Zoe pretended to lose a spelling contest just to make a shy little boy laugh. That ordinary moment meant more to Amanda than any fortune ever could. A year earlier, she had feared her sister wouldn't live long enough to celebrate another birthday. Now Zoe was planning to become a pediatric nurse. Sometimes miracles arrived quietly. Just as Jae-won had once said. News channels had spent months covering the collapse of the Kang criminal organization. Jae-won's testimony had dismantled decades of corruption. Politicians resigned. Police commanders were arrested. Money laundering networks disappeared. Chairman Cho received multiple life sentences without parole after overwhelming evidence connected him to murder, extortion, and organized crime. People called Jae-won many things. Traitor. Witness. Criminal. Hero. He accepted none of the labels. He simply accepted responsibility. Because that was the one thing he had never been taught as a child. Amanda visited him every month. The first few visits were awkward. Neither of them knew what life looked like without fear standing between them. So they talked about simple things instead. Books, food, Zoe's recovery, the children at the community center. One afternoon she brought homemade beef stew. Jae-won smiled after the first spoonful. It tastes familiar. She laughed. It should. It reminds me of something. Mrs. Brooks taught me her recipe. He closed his eyes for a second. I've missed this. Not the food. The feeling. Amanda understood without asking. 6 months later, Jae-won walked out of a federal rehabilitation and witness protection program. Because of his full cooperation and the lives he had helped save, his sentence had been significantly reduced. Amanda was waiting outside. No cameras. No reporters. Just Amanda. She held something in her hand. He recognized it immediately. A small wooden cross. Not the burned one. A new one. I thought. He whispered. You might need this more than I do. He stared at it for a long moment before accepting it carefully. This one won't burn. Amanda smiled. No. Because now you'll know where to find your way back. He looked at her. I have nothing left. She stepped closer. That's not true. You've lost your empire. I never wanted the empire. You've lost your name. You already know my real name. He laughed softly. You always did. Amanda reached for his hand. I told you once that I refused to become something a powerful man owned. You were right. I still believe that. So do I. She smiled. But today, she intertwined her fingers with his. I'm choosing to walk beside a man who finally learned that love can't be bought, controlled, or hidden behind sacrifice. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Mrs. Brooks retired soon afterward. Before leaving the community center one evening, she handed Amanda an old photograph she had quietly rescued from the Kang estate before it was sold. It showed 2 children sitting outside a church. A frightened Korean boy. A smiling little black girl. Neither knew how much that single afternoon would change their futures. Amanda placed the photograph inside the community center's hallway. No names. No explanation. Just a reminder that one act of kindness can echo across a lifetime. Every Sunday, Amanda and Jae-won served lunch together at the Crescent House. Children rarely asked about his past. They only knew he always let them have the last piece of cornbread. And that he listened when they spoke. One little girl looked up at him one afternoon. Were you always this nice? Amanda tried not to laugh. Jae-won thought for a moment before answering. No. What changed? He looked across the room at Amanda, who was helping Zoe wash dishes while laughing at something one of the children had said. Then he smiled. Someone reminded me who I was before the world told me who I had to become. As the sun began to set, Amanda locked the front doors of the community center. Jae-won waited beside her. They started walking home together. No bodyguards. No armored vehicles. No fear. Just 2 people choosing the ordinary life they had once believed was impossible. Amanda slipped her hand into his. This time he didn't hesitate. He held it gently. The same way a frightened little boy had once accepted a wooden cross from a kind stranger outside a church. Only now, neither of them was walking alone. The end. What did this story teach you about love, sacrifice, and the freedom to choose? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us that even the darkest past can never overcome a truly transformed heart.